Good morning. My name is Lynn Palmisano. I'm the chair of the Budget Committee, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the November 1st Minneapolis Budget Committee public hearing. With me at the dais are Council Members Cunningham, Johnson, Schrader, Fletcher, Cano, and Gordon. I anticipate we'll have a few more people up here by the time we actually start to hear from you. Colleagues, today's meeting is the first of 3 formal hearings to invite the public to share with us their ideas about the mayor's recommended 2019 budget. As you know, we've made a few changes to our process this year in an attempt to bring greater access and transparency into our budget process, and the addition of this public hearing is part of those efforts. Vice Chair Fletcher and I agreed that having a hearing earlier in the process could allow for more community input and subsequent consideration prior to markup. So see this as a midpoint check in our budget process to see where public energy might be on the mayor's proposal itself before we start marking it up. We will still be conducting 2 additional public hearings, as we've done for many years. Those have been on the council's published calendar here for many months. The next public hearing is Wednesday, November 28th, beginning at 6:05 p.m. The 3rd and final public hearing will be after our markup, which is December 5th. That's a Wednesday night at 6:05 p.m. Both of those hearings are also conducted here in this chamber. We anticipate the council will take final action on our 2019 budget following that December 5th public hearing that same night. Before we get started, I want to review some basic information about the budget. We're not going to have a formal presentation this morning. Mayor Frey presented his recommended budget on August 15th. The mayor proposed a $1.5 billion budget to finance our city's operations this next year. That represents an increase in the property taxes of approximately 5.6%. A copy of that budget is on the city's website, along with some really helpful videos where we're trying to help make that more knowable. We also have a full printed copy available with the city clerk for any member of the public. This committee has conducted a series of hearings one by one on each and every department's budget over the past several weeks. All of those meetings were broadcast on city's TV channel and streamed to the city's website. They're also cataloged piece by piece on YouTube. For those who wish to address the committee as part of this public hearing, we'll be taking speakers in the order that they signed up, and they're registered with the clerk. If you wish to speak and haven't already registered, I invite you to do that now. Also, if you have any documentation that you'd like to submit for the public record, you may give those materials to our clerk, Ms. Giesler, and she'll make sure to get them to all of us. You don't need to have 13 copies yourself. Before I recognize the first speaker here, I'll review a few procedural matters. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to address the committee. We ask everyone to be respectful of all speakers and all of the opinions that they may offer. This hearing is a neutral forum for residents to address the council on proposed spending plans and priorities in the mayor's recommended budget. So out of respect for all speakers, please, if you're testifying today, please conclude your comments when your time has expired to allow the next speaker an opportunity to address the committee. We have a timer available to help speakers monitor the use of their time and so that you can wrap up your comments. Also, the clerk does have some blank comment sheets for those who would prefer to submit their testimony in writing, and that will also be included in the public record of this hearing. So with that, we're ready to open the public hearing, and the first speaker is Rose Tang. Welcome. If you'll please state your name and address for the record when you begin.
Sure.
Welcome.
Chair Palmisano, council members, my name is Rose Tang, and I'm the Public Policy Director at the Metropolitan Consortium of Community Developers. I'm also a resident of the Diamond Lake neighborhood in Ward 11. MCCD is a proud member of Make Homes Happen, which is a coalition of close to 50 organizations mobilizing for production and preservation of affordable housing and protection of tenants' rights in Minneapolis. Our coalition represents the full continuum of affordable housing, from homeless services to supportive housing to affordable home ownership opportunities. We support the significant increase in affordable housing funding proposed by the mayor for 2019. These investments would have a meaningful impact in Minneapolis us, for our residents, particularly in low-income communities, and for our neighborhoods. We have a number of testifiers today from our coalition who will share with you specifics on how the various affordable housing programs contained in the budget have contributed to housing stability in Minneapolis and how an increased investment would benefit our communities. In addition to the testifiers that are here today, our members, like many of you, have spent the summer speaking with Minneapolis residents throughout the city about their housing needs and why this investment is important to them. People told us about how they wanted stability for their children and their children's children, how they were concerned about racial disparities that result from the inadequate supply of affordable housing, seniors who wanted to remain in their homes, students who wanted to find somewhere affordable to live so that they could continue to pay their tuition, homeownership advisors who are working with people striving to purchase their first homes, and many others who care deeply about this issue. Not everyone could join us today, but Make Homes Happen members will be delivering their stories to you later this month, and I hope you'll keep them in mind as well. I want to thank you for your support for housing and for the time and commitment that you've put into achieving housing stability for Minneapolis residents.
Thank you. The second speaker, I'm sorry if I can't read the writing. It looks like Ryan Cirillo. Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Ryan Cirillo. I live in St. Paul and I work for Alliance Housing in the Whittier neighborhood of Minneapolis. Minneapolis has the reputation of being a livable city, a progressive hub with a long legacy of valuing human rights. We cannot turn our back on this legacy by allowing Minneapolis to become unlivable for vulnerable populations at or below 30% of the area median income, many of whom are elderly, disabled, or working people who are the backbone of our robust economy. However, this may be our reality if we fail to acknowledge the growing housing crisis that we face. The tenants that Alliance Housing serves, often at or below 30% AMI, need housing that is deeply affordable. In order for these people to sustain their housing arrangements, there must be stable and ongoing subsidies. While my organization, Alliance Housing, acknowledges the significance of the newly allocated funds from the mayor, temporary funding for affordable housing will not create the long-term housing justice that Minneapolis needs. Alliance's interest list alone has nearly doubled in the past year, as more and more people are unable to afford housing in the city. Many of our tenants tell us that they were desperately searching for housing for the entire 16 months that they were on our interest list. A lot of people were also in the shelter, and some people had to resort to living in their car. And this is in one of the wealthiest metropolitan areas in the nation. If the funding remains a one-time infusion rather than a dedicated stream, affordable housing production will stagnate and more people will be squeezed out of the housing market. While housing is becoming increasingly expensive for us all, people making 30% of the area median income or less are most at risk of homelessness. Without bold action on affordable housing from legislators, these baby boomers, minimum wage workers, and disabled people will either continue to struggle to find housing or go homeless. Let's make their homes happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Chris Wilson, and I'll just notice that the following speakers so that they can get lined up or get ready to speak after that. We have Chris Wilson, then Russ Adams, then Cherise Turner. Welcome.
Good. Hi, my name is Chris Wilson. I live at 416 Fifth Avenue Southeast in Minneapolis's oldest neighborhood, Marcy Homes. So a little plug for my part of town there. I work for Project for Pride Living. We are a nonprofit developer of affordable housing. So just came today to express my support for all of the things that the city is doing to create more affordable housing. I think it's a part of our competitiveness, and it's a good long-term investment for our city. As we all know, it's taken some time to kind of arrive at the situation that we have with affordable housing and the dramatic shortage that we have. And I liken it to turning a barge, or to think about it. And if we want to turn the barge, it's going to take effort and time and planning to turn the barge. And so I think in terms of our affordable housing, if we want to begin to, kind of turn the barge so that in 10 years we're not having this conversation again, I think we all need to do it. And so I just wanted to commend the city for its efforts to date, part of the effort being increased funding, but also part of the effort being looking at rental assistance for people with very low incomes. I think that's a great out-of-the-box thought. And then also kind of the flexibility that your staff has been demonstrating, and also the sense of urgency and effort by them. So I just wanted to, first of all, commend the city for kind of stepping up, seeing this problem and beginning to address it, and just letting you know that I think that it's on the right track, and really appreciate what you're doing. So that's it.
Thank you. Russ Adams, and then Cherise Turner, and then Jeff Washburn. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Russ Adams. I'm the Executive Director of the Alliance for Metropolitan Stability. I do want to thank the City Council for their commitment to affordable housing and to the community input process for the budget, and to your commitment to the people living in the encampment. I know that's been a really difficult issue for you to grapple with. As advocates, we appreciate Mayor Frye's proposed budget that is before you. We think it recognizes the three main pillars that we need to do to address in affordable housing, from tenant protection to new production to preservation. We also appreciate that the trust fund has been funded at a very high level by the mayor, and that there are a variety of innovative programs, some of them new, some of them that do not have your full agreement on in terms of direction. But we trust that you guys will put the needs and important critical issues facing these residents first. There are some things that we still need. We still need a dedicated, locally sourced, predictable funding mechanism for the trust fund, one that is independent from the budget process, one that the city and the city council can still control and make decisions on, but a flexible fund that can be moved around to address those three pillars and other needs. We also, as an Alliance staffer, I also want to thank the folks on this side of the aisle, Reclaim the Block, for their advocacy and asking that we prioritize affordable housing over some other issues before you. We need everybody in this work and in this battle to address the housing crisis. It's especially important to address individuals and families that are in crisis or at risk of homelessness, and I know that's one of the areas in the budget that still needs to be decided. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. We have Cherise Turner, Jeff Washburn, and then Joan Bennett.
Madam Chair, Council. My name is Cherise Turner, Senior Director of Programs and Services with Habitat for Humanity. I oversee our homeowner development program, as well as coaching, foreclosure prevention, as well as critical home repair. Twin Cities Habitat is a member of Make Homes Happen because we have value investments along the entire continuum, is a continuum of housing. We are here to share our strong support for the range of affordable housing investments proposed by Mayor Frye in his 2019 budget. We are thankful to the City Council, the city staff, and also recognize the benefits of healthy housing continuum and have prioritized our affordable housing work. Affordable housing is about more than how much the rent or mortgage payments cost. It's about quality of life for individuals, families, and communities. We know that there are multiple bottom lines when it comes to investing in affordable housing. Safe, affordable housing also helps make our communities healthier and more vibrant. Whether we rent or we own, if your housing is affordable, you can stay on top of savings, not moving as often, and just stabilizing the community. Folks who need to spend more than a third of their income on housing affects healthcare, healthy foods, education, transportation. When you have a home that's affordable for you, all of those other areas of your community benefits as well. As you consider your 2019 budget for the city of Minneapolis, please continue to support a range of investments throughout the housing continuum. The investments proposed by Mayor Frye would have a significant impact in Minneapolis. Considering the scale of city affordable housing crisis, Make Homes Happen continues to advocate for a dedicated, long-term local revenue source to provide ongoing support. Please consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Jeff Washburn, Joan Bennett, and then it's light on my carbon copy, but I think it's Christie COS. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Palmisano and fellow council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the 2019 Minneapolis proposed budget. My name is Jeff Washburn. I've served as the City of Lakes Community Land Trust Director for the last 16 years. Over those 16 years, I'm conservatively estimating that the city has invested over $7 million in City of Lakes Community Land Trust, or CLCLT, homes. The CLT has been actively supporting the efforts of Make Homes Happen Coalition. I'm here to thank the city for increasing its funding support for affordable housing through its proposed 2019 budget, but would also like to encourage you to look at ways to further increase it and develop mechanisms for dedicated funding for future years. Today, this afternoon, the State Housing Finance Agency Board will hopefully be approving a $1.7 million award to our organization. While this is great news, and it will create affordable housing funding for us to be used exclusively in the city of Minneapolis, I'm sad to report that we actually applied for $3.8 million in total funding, and would have more than likely would have been awarded more had there been a local match. That dedicated funding that I think is really important to the city will allow us to achieve dedicated funding and opportunities with other funding sources in the future. Within the next year, the CLCLT will be more than likely the largest urban land trust in the nation. There are over 270 permanently affordable homes in 12 of the 13 Minneapolis wards today, and we've been able to assist over 330 households into permanently affordable, community-owned, responsible, sustainable home ownership in Minneapolis. The difference between those two numbers is 60 resales. 60 resales where we've been able to keep each and every home affordable for another low and moderate income household. Not a single one was lost back to the market. We are only able to leverage the city funding with not only are we able to leverage the city funding with other levels of funding, but we are able to leverage these funds over time through resales, further making every dollar invested by the city not only leverage additional dollars, but assist multiple generations of low-income buyers achieve home ownership in the city. Thank you for your increased funding support of affordable housing, but we encourage all of you and all of us to do more this year and in future years. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Joan Bennett, Christie COS, and then Ricardo Perez. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, council members. My name is Joan Bennett. I'm a Minneapolis resident and employee at Hope Community, Inc., working on the real estate team. Hope Community is a longtime owner and operator of affordable housing in the Phillips community. Much of the housing in our neighborhood is comprised of small, multifamily buildings from 2 to 6 units, and it's the bulk of this housing that comprises what we now consider to be the naturally occurring affordable housing in Minneapolis. Unfortunately, this housing stock is at great risk. Residents in our neighborhood are always telling us that they're worried that they're going to lose their housing when the rents go up, and they won't be able to find affordable housing within the neighborhood. And this is happening because investors are now seeing the value of these properties. Investors who a few years ago wouldn't have given our neighborhood a first look now see that they can add value and make a lot of money by turning around, by rehabbing these aging properties and raising the rents. Now, if we leave it to the market or we leave it to existing affordable financing tools, we will lose this housing. It's based on Hope's experience as a owner-operator of the small multifamily housing. I want to impress upon 2 points at the committee. The first is that the city needs to be a leader in investing and partnering with community organizations in saving this housing. What we know is that existing affordable financing tools do not work for these small properties unless we bundle them into large portfolios. And this takes a lot of time, and in a market that is gentrifying, we don't have the luxury of that time. The tools to save these properties building by building just aren't there. The second is that these small properties can't afford to take on amortizing debt. So right now, Hope charges rent at 50% AMI. Based on 10 years of operating data, we know that 50% AMI rent covers our expenses. If we had to take on amortizing debt to invest in properties or acquire new properties, we wouldn't be able to keep rents affordable and the properties safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Christie COS, Ricardo Perez, and then Erin Burke. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christie COS. My address is 3812 3rd Avenue South, Minneapolis. I am in Ward 8. I'm here representing the Minneapolis Community Housing Team. We are a part of the Make Home Happen Coalition. We are more than advocacy organization. I'm here to advocate to get more affordable housing in the cities. Right now, we have a homelessness problem. We have tents everywhere. We have families living in cars. The shelters are full. If we invest more in affordable housing, that can solve the homelessness problem. In my case, I was homeless for 2 years because I have the problem that I could not find affordable housing in the cities. Housing is a human right and is responsibility of the city to take care of their residents. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to recognize there have been a lot of people joining us in the room, so if you haven't already done so, please be sure to sign in with the clerk if you wish to speak. Also, the clerk can give any written materials that you have that you might like to have included in the public record and get them to all of us. We have Ricardo Perez, Erin Burke, and following that, Lynn Rabinavero. Sorry. Welcome.
Morning. My name is Ricardo Perez. I am a community organizer with Community Action Partnership of Hennepin County. And Community Action Partnership of Hennepin County is a proud member of Make Homes Happen and the Suburban Hennepin Housing Coalition. So the Suburban Hennepin Housing Coalition is a collaboration of community housing teams in most cities across the suburbs of Hennepin County. So from Bloomington to Brooklyn Park, we help organize and create awareness amongst community members, service providers, faith community partners, elected officials, and city staff on the lack of affordable housing crisis and on possible solutions to preserve and produce more affordable housing and also create tenant protections. So with our connections and with our network, we have helped cities such as St. Louis Park, Golden Valley, Bloomington, and Richfield pass a 90-day tenant protection that helps tenants alleviate some of the trauma from involuntary displacement by providing either time of notice or relocation assistance funds. Affordable housing is essential infrastructure that is necessary for all of our communities and one that we need to work on in partnership. This is why we support both housing initiatives in Minneapolis and throughout Hennepin County. Members of Make Some Happen and the Suburban Hennepin Housing Coalition are also part of the Homes for All Coalition, which works on state level to advance housing stability initiatives for all Minnesotans. In the 20 seconds I have left, I just want to put emphasis on the fact that the partnerships that we have developed throughout the suburbs with faith community partners, community members, tenants, elected officials like yourselves are extremely important for us to advance affordable housing. It's something that is hurting us all over the suburbs, and it's something that we can all work together to make it happen. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have Erin Burke, Lynn, and then Shiru. Welcome.
My name's, excuse me. My name's Erin Burke. I live at 4611 DuPont Avenue North in the Lynn Bohannon neighborhood, and I'm a community organizer with Jewish Community Action. It's been a tough week for my community, so I just want to start by remembering the community elders we lost in Pittsburgh at Tree of Life Congregation. May their memories be a blessing. It's in times like this that I find solace in the stories that we tell about our ancestors. So this week's Torah portion, we meet our matriarch, Rebecca. The story begins as Abraham sends his servant to find a wife for his son Isaac in Abraham's homeland. There the servant meets a gracious and generous Rebecca who offers her new guests a place in her home, water for them and their camels until they've had their fill. Rebecca becomes Isaac's wife. But this 2019 budget is another chance for the city of Minneapolis to follow the lead of a strong woman before us and make sure that every worker is accommodated. JCA is encouraged by the vision set out by the mayor with respect to funding housing initiatives in 2019. We fully support such investments in making sure our communities can find and maintain dignified and affordable housing. For years, the city has chosen to fund policing at a drastically higher level compared to housing. This continues as the police budget increases towards nearly $185 million. We're glad to see the gap begin to close and believe that ensuring true public safety requires us to resource housing in such a way. As a member of the Make Homes Happen Coalition, our collective demand, our coalitional demand is a dedicated revenue stream that does not depend on the whims of a yearly budget cycle, funding housing at $50 million each year. The 1,000 households of JCA's membership look forward to working with all of you to make that demand policy. Our members know that the robust investment we're making in our community will have the greatest impact if we target its greatest needs, making sure we expand and enforce tenant protections, preserve deeply affordable housing as both dignified and affordable, and make sure the new housing we build is affordable and accessible to those who need it most, targeting the 30% of area median income and below. Our membership spans homeowners from Lynn Bohannon to Linden Hills, renters from Powderhorn to Como. We all agree our current investment in housing is woefully inadequate and believe the proposed budget is a step forward in the right direction. We commit to walking with you in that way. Thank you.
We have Lynn, Shiru, and then Mags Beal. Welcome. If you could state your name and address for the
Good morning. My name is Lynn Rabinovich. I live in the Kingfield neighborhood, 3940 Harriet Avenue. And I'm here today to talk about the policing items in the budget. When I was thinking about what I wanted to say, it suddenly got very easy because I pulled out my notes from 2 years ago, almost, December 7th, 2016, in this very room, and nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is some new council members and a new mayor, so our hope is lying with you. What I said then was that as a white person, most, but not all of my interactions with police officers have ranged from neutral to positive. That's not true for my friends of color. I believe our system of policing makes many people feel less safe, not more safe in our communities. And to be clear, I'm talking about the institutions of policing, not individual officers. I know we have good cops, we have bad cops, and I think the bad cops harm the good cops. The vast majority of our officers, I believe it's only 8% that live in the city. The vast majority do not. This is not community policing. Our officers don't have sufficient, if any, de-escalation training and anti-bias training. They're overly weaponized, and I believe police are not accountable for their actions. For these reasons, I urge you to spend money not to hire more officers, but to strengthen our communities. Among other things, affordable housing, resources for homeless people, services for youth, and people with mental illness. And I just want to say one more thing. I taught young children for many years, and I can say that by the time kids are 4, maybe even 3, they know it's better to be white, it's safer to be white, and that is white supremacy at its core. And that's on all of us. And we need to fight that now. So please start by building communities, not police.
Thank you. We have Shiru, Mags Beal, and Sheila Nejad. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Ruthie Sethi. I'm a community organizer with Parks and Power at Hope Community, and I'm here with the Reclaim the Block Coalition. I'm here because I believe another world is possible. A world where people can access joy, can go to public spaces without being criminalized, can eat healthy food and not be killed by the police. Racial disparities and inequities that we see today were designed, are intentional and purposeful. They were designed to hurt, harm, and criminalize low-income communities of color. That has got to go. I see policing, the institution of policing, as one of the ways we hurt low-income communities of color. I think we should fund affordable housing and the preservation of affordable housing. As we're seeing, housing is a huge issue. Gentrification is on the rise, and people are scared of being priced out of their neighborhoods. Sometimes I worry I'm going to be priced out of my neighborhood. We need to fund our community's safety, not police. They do not ensure community safety. I think we should know that by now. I want us to invest in affordable housing instead of trying to manage police PR. I want us to divest 5% from MPD's police budget. I think we can do that. I don't think that's hard. I think we can really invest in our community's safety and joy. Let's do it.
Thank you. We have Mags Beal, Sheila Nejad, and Tony Williams. Welcome.
Good morning, council members. My name is Mags Bell, and I live at 3205 22nd Avenue South in the Corcoran neighborhood. I'm here as a part of the Reclaim the Block Coalition and to support those demands. But I speak to you today not just as a resident of Minneapolis and a community organizer, but also as a graduate student in public health, which means that I spend a lot of time thinking about how to make communities healthier and safer. And anyone in the field of public health will tell you that the most effective way that we do that is prevention. We meet basic needs: clean water, healthy food, good and truly affordable housing, education, and of course, healthcare. We talk about infrastructure. What we do not talk about is police. The Minneapolis Police Department has shown itself over its history and in the last year that it does not make our city safer. Quite the opposite. It has killed our residents, it has assaulted them, harassed them, and tried to cover up some of its worst actions. At the same time, Minneapolis is facing several crises. A housing crisis, as people have talked about, and we are not exempt from multiple other crises like healthcare and the climate crisis. The residents of the city have entrusted you with our money. I ask that you allocate it in ways that serve our interests. And I want you to start by making changes to the proposed budget, by divesting from police and investing in community-led safety. I believe that we can fund our communities, not more cops, that we can invest in truly affordable housing and not covering up police violence, and I agree that we can divest 5% from this budget and invest it in what is best for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have Sheila, Tony Williams, and then Mel Pierce. Welcome, Sheila.
Good morning. My name is Sheila Nejad. I live at 2649 Longfellow Avenue. And I want a safe Minneapolis for all of us. And we know that crime isn't random. Most of the time, crime happens when people have not been able to meet their basic needs through other means. Jobs, houses, mental health services, these are all ways that actually prevent crime, not police. So why is Mayor Frye's budget funding the police at tens of millions of dollars more than any of these? $1 million in ongoing funding for 8 more police on the street, $12 million to build community trust through the Community and Collaborative Advancement Unit, twice what was last year. We already have trusted leaders and organizations that are building safety in our communities. Organizations like the Domestic Abuse Project, Inquiles Unidos, the Group Violence Prevention Program, all who don't have to spend millions of dollars to cover up their legacy of violence, harassment, and repression. So I urge the council to adopt Reclaim the Block's budget suggestions to move the proposed increases in the budget into community-directed safety initiatives, into affordable housing and services for renters in ongoing funds, and a divestment of 5% from the department. We've invested in criminalizing our communities for far too long. It's time for a change.
Thank you. We have Tony Williams, Mel Pierce, and Lex Horan.
Good morning, Chair Palmisano, council members. I want to say first, thank you for having this additional opportunity for community members to engage with the budget earlier in the process. It's incredibly important and a good way to be accountable to the community. So thank you for being here this morning. Our police department is failing us. So when you guys came into office, right, what has happened since then, right? What have been the major headlines around the Minneapolis Police Department? So a low-level marijuana sting scandal, right, with 46 out of 47 community members being involved being black. A ketamine scandal where officers were demanding that EMS officers put ketamine into people to keep them sedated against medical guidance, right? A sexual assault scandal where it became eminently clear that officers were incapable of responding to sexual assault in the community effectively. The killing of Thurman Blevins in North Minneapolis after they escalated a situation that they did not need to. And meanwhile, this, of course, all goes above and beyond the daily harassment of communities of color and the way that the Minneapolis Police Department, despite our sanctuary city status, is complicit in working with ICE. By sending people into Hennepin County jails where they're immediately remanded to ICE, we are furthering the white nationalist agenda of the president of the administration that's happening right now. We are doing that with our police department. So it's ludicrous that we're putting more money into these things in a year where we've had all of these things. We need to dream bigger. So again, I'm with the Reclaim the Block Coalition. We have three major demands. The first one, no civilianizing sworn positions in the budget. That means taking $1 million slated to put new cops on the street and putting it into the collaborative safety projects that we have been working on the last couple years in budgets. Second demand is investing in affordable housing. Again, as many people have said, we invest in housing one time, not ongoing. We can take $6 million of the money that is slated to do collaborative and community advancement and put it into affordable housing. The last demand is 5% from the budget. We are not asking for the department to be dissolved tomorrow. We are not asking for 50% of the budget. We are saying it's time for us to take something small, $9 million, and invest it in creating a better future for our city. Thank you.
We have Mel Pierce, Lex Horan, and then, Shrine Zalm.
Hi, my name is Mel Pierce. I'm with Reclaim the Block, and first I just want to echo all the brilliant and logical sentiments of my peers at Reclaim the Block. I'm a community artist, muralist, and teaching artist in the Twin Cities. I live in the Powderhorn neighborhood in Ward 9. And I support divesting at least 5% of the police budget and redirecting any proposed funding to the MPD back into our communities. I see how my poor working class and middle class friends and loved ones are all getting pushed out of their homes that they've been renting for years. I teach in the public schools, and I see how my students, many of whom experience unstable housing and the trauma that perpetuates, are vying for extremely limited mental health services in their schools. These students grow up and are the first to be targeted by the police and the first to be pipelined into the prison industrial complex, which is traumatic and life-threatening in itself and also affects people's agency and access to resources for the rest of their lives. This cycle of violence and of disregard for humanity is going to continue until real resources are being moved into and under the power of communities most affected by this historical violence. Funding police is rooted in fear of losing power. It props up the people who already have power and resources and inherently disconnects them from those affected by their decisions and from the reality of the majority of this country, particularly the 80% of who only own who have control over 7% of the nation's wealth. Funding communities is rooted in trust and redistributes power and resources so communities can have self-determination, and inherently connects people. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Lex Horan, Shane Zalm, and Freya Richmond. Welcome.
Good morning, council members. My name is Lex Horan. I live in the East Phillips neighborhood at 2925 17th Avenue South. Thanks so much for the opportunity to talk with you all today. As a transgender person, I've been thinking a lot this week about what we need in our local communities to support our folks in the attacks that we're facing from the federal government. And so I've been thinking about the most urgent issues that I hear about from other trans folks that I'm in community with. So I think of the many, many times that I have fielded and forwarded emails from folks who are desperately looking for safe and affordable places to live as trans people in our community. I think about the 2 or 3 times that I've driven all over Minneapolis with trans friends who are trying really hard to get into supportive and trans competent drug treatment programs and are struggling to find those. I think about the time that I sat with a group of other trans folks who were troubleshooting together how we could get support for a Black trans friend who was in a mental health crisis without having armed officers show up and make the situation worse. These are all things that we need resources for, right, in our communities. And what I almost never hear from trans folks I'm in community with is that we need more police on the streets. There is a national study, that's anecdotal, that's my friends, right? But that is also borne by research nationally. There's a national study in 2015 that found that 58% of trans folks would not feel comfortable approaching the police for help. And about that same number have experienced some kind of mistreatment by the police. So I don't believe the solution to that is more training for police. I think that even when police are using the right pronouns for us, they still are not the resources that are helping us get what we need. Trans communities, like all other communities that we're hearing from today, have ideas about what we need the most to survive and to be well and healthy. And I believe that it's time for Minneapolis to stop doubling down on police funding and really investing in the things that are going to help keep the folks in my community safe. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Shane Zohm, Freya Richmond, and Nova Bradford.
Good morning, Chair, Council members. Shane Zahn with the Minneapolis Downtown Improvement District. I'm the Director of Safety Initiatives. I'm here to support the Mayor's proposal to civilianize 8 positions in the Minneapolis Police Department. I think it's a critical step forward in investment in harm reduction strategies to ensure a safe and vibrant city for all. I just thank you for your consideration for this important budget proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Freya Richmond, Nova Bradford, and then Emmanuel Ortiz.
Good morning. I'm Freya Richmond. I'm here as a representative of the Transgender Equity Council of the City of Minneapolis. I live in 106. It's inspiring this morning to hear testimony about the vulnerable populations in this community. One of those populations is the transgender community and the gender nonconforming, gender expansive community in our city. The Transgender Equity Council's charge is, as a group made up largely of volunteers, citizens of the city, to raise the issues that are of import for the trans community and the gender nonconforming community. What I'm here to ask for is that some of the money that we divest from the police be allocated to continue a support staff position that we've had in Nikki Linegang, who was brought in to help plan and execute the Transgender Equity Summit, which is an annual event. But they've also helped us organize our thoughts at meetings, write policy. This is someone who has an understanding of what's happening on a national level, who understands what's happening in the city and how the city works, and is able to be a liaison between the thoughts of the council and the city. And I think if the city is really serious about making an impact for the lives of trans and gender nonconforming community, we need to back it with some staffing. And so Nikki's done an amazing job, and I urge you to keep a position like that in the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have Noah Bradford, Emmanuel Ortiz, and then Jonathan Steele.
Hi, my name is Nova Bradford. I live in the Lowry Hill neighborhood of Minneapolis, and along with Freya, I'm the co-facilitator of the Transgender Equity Council here for the city of Minneapolis. And I'm here today to urge you to please, please, please continue the funding for our support staff person. We have 1 staff member, and I'm going to tell you why that's essential. We're a volunteer board that's designed to liaise between the local transgender community and members of the city government. And since we're not compensated for our time, we have limited ability to invest because we all have bills to pay and other things that we need to do. So having supportive staffing is essential to actually get anything done. And another reason is that our primary role is to make recommendations for policy. And if there's not a staff person, we have no mechanism through which recommendations can be solicited. So it's really, really essential that we actually have a dedicated staff person. The past weekend, there was a massive demonstration by Minnesota residents in along Lake Street to support trans rights because these are rights that are under attack from lots of different places right now. And that just shows us that Minneapolis residents are speaking. They have something to say, and through continuing the financial support for this support staff position, the city of Minneapolis can have a mechanism to actually listen to the voices of the community. And so please, just like once again, I'm going to urge you please to just renew the funding for this 1 staff person for the Transgender Equity Council. Thank you all.
Thank you. We have Emmanuel Ortiz, Jonathan Steele, and Zed Jensen. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Emmanuel Ortiz. I'm a resident of Ward 9. I'm here today in support of Reclaim the Block. Safe, secure, and truly affordable housing has never harassed my sister on the street. Well-funded youth development programs have never racially profiled my Black and brown and Native nieces and nephews. Job creation programs that provide a living wage and union protection have never shot and killed my brother. And more cops have never made me or my community safer. So I'm here today to urge you to divest 5% minimum from MPD's budget because our communities need more affordable housing, more opportunities for youth, and living wage jobs, not more policing. Because our communities need more community-led safety programs for youth, Native people, immigrants, queer and trans folks, people of color, disabled people, and our elders, not cops. In a city that is over 50% renter households and for whom 65 to 80% of households of colors are renters, but only 45% of white households are renters, affordable housing is a racial justice issue. In a city with a well-documented history of police misuse of power and racial profiling, to fund police over housing, even with a one-year spike for housing, is not a racial justice issue. So we, your community, we implore you to excavate the political will that glittered like gold in your election campaigns, and don't turn us into fools for having supported you. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Jonathan. Your last name begins with an S. The rest got on the carbon copy got messed up. Zed Jensen, and then Elyse Brando Tennis.
Good morning. My name is Jonathan Steele. I live at 38th Street and 3rd Avenue in Ward 8. And I'm with Reclaim the Block and also with the Center for Prophetic Imagination, which is another organization that tries to integrate contemplative spirituality with direct action and radical politics. And I want to call out that we, in support of all these demands, one of the things that we're attempting to do is separate the idea of safety from the idea of policing and the idea that safety requires violence to enforce it. I want to reiterate what all of those folks have said about how housing makes people safer, mental health care makes people safer. Funding these things in a sustained, dedicated way will make people safer and will make them more able to flourish in their communities and stay in their communities where they can make them better. Thank you.
Thank you. Zed Jensen, Elyse Brando Tennis, and Miranda Walker. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Zed Jensen, and I live at 2437 11th Avenue South, Minneapolis. And I am here with Reclaim the Block, and I support divesting 5% of the police budget to fund our communities. I grew up experiencing poverty, and like many poor communities, we knew that police do not mean safety. We had creative ways of providing safety for our community, and we didn't even get paid for it. The city of Minneapolis desperately needs to give financial support to truly exploring what community safety looks like. The answers to stopping police violence lie within our communities, and we must ask them, what do you need to really feel safe? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Elyse Brando Tennis, Miranda Walkers, and Ryan Strack. Welcome.
All right. Good morning. I'm Elyse Brandel Tannis. I live in Ward 9 on Bloomington Ave and 34th Street. And I was here in the mayor's office earlier this summer, so in June, with the Poor People's Campaign Center for Prophetic Imagination. We were asking the mayor to bear witness to the history of police violence and also to call for a moratorium on funding and to plant some seeds of imagination. We know that there's this imagination in the community. We've heard so many testimonies today about what durable neighborhood-built safety that is not the police department and really serves its citizens looks like. We've heard many testimonies today about how affordable housing and housing services and investing in housing stability can be that. So I'm going to bring up again this question about the civilianizing sworn positions. If we put 8 more officers on the streets, we've heard today that that doesn't make people feel safer. So let's imagine what $1 million could do if we invest it in programs that already exist, that are led by people who have relationships with their neighbors and know what they need and know how to help them. $1 million is a lot of money for these smaller programs, for people who know how to make a lot happen and have not been funded for it ever. But they need to be funded for it to keep working. So again, I support Reclaim the Block's platform. I encourage you to imagine what we can do with that 5% divestment from the police, among other things. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Miranda Walker, Ryan Strack, and then Eric Hoke. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Miranda Walker, and I'm the Housing Development Manager for AON. AON is a nonprofit affordable housing developer located here in the Twin Cities, here in Minneapolis, and a member of Make Homes Happen. And our work is focused on the development and preservation of affordable housing, and we are in support of the increase in housing funds included in the mayor's budget. We are committed to providing housing for the city's neediest population, specifically those at 50% AMI, 30% AMI, and those who've experienced homelessness. Our success in doing this work has relied on partnership with the city. Most recently, we completed a project located here in the Central City, Opportunity Housing Partnership, that included tremendous city investment, specifically trust funds, that allowed for the preservation of 116 units, all deeply affordable at 30% AMI, 50% AMI, with nearly half of those units available for folks who've experienced homelessness. I am here in support of the increase in the mayor's budget to the trust fund, but I'm also here to advocate for having a dedicated source for those funds, as that would allow us and other members of Make Homes Happen to continue our work in providing affordable housing for folks in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Strack, Eric Hoke, and then Candace Montgomery. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Palmisano, council members. My name is Ryan Strack, and I work for Minneapolis Public Schools. I want to briefly start by just expressing our gratitude for your support, the council and the city's support of our public schools, students, and families. Specifically, I'd like to voice our support for the mayor's proposal, Stable Home, Stable Schools initiative. Through decades-long research partnership with the University of Minnesota and other researchers, we know a lot about how homelessness impacts our students, their academic outcomes, and their life trajectory. I think we can all imagine how well we'd be doing at our jobs right now if we weren't sure where our families would sleep tonight. We have two options together to address the student homelessness crisis. We can figure out how to adjust our school programming to meet the needs of students experiencing homelessness, or we can try to address the housing issue itself. I firmly believe we should be doing both. This proposed initiative, which is based on national and local successful models, moves upstream to address the housing issue directly by providing rental assistance and housing supports through unique collaboration of government agencies and other partners. Stable Home, Stable Schools would have a significant impact on the lives of our students and their families. It would provide needed stability for the students, reduce excessive transportation costs, and improve student turnover rates at schools. Thank you for your consideration of this critical investment. The rest of the partners in this project and I are more than happy to answer questions throughout your budget process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Eric Hoke, then Candace Montgomery, then Derica Nye. Welcome.
Chair Palmisano and members of the City Council, thanks for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Eric Hoke. I'm the Executive Director of Homeline. We're a statewide nonprofit that provides free legal advice to renters, and we serve around 3,000 renter households in the city of Minneapolis per year. We're a member of the Make Homes Happen coalition. We support the housing provisions in the budget and also support a local dedicated funding source for affordable housing and tenant protections. I'm going to just highlight a number of key investments in the budget around tenant protections.
The city actually has a number of very impactful ordinances on the books relating to tenant protections and housing conditions, but the ordinances are only as helpful as the ability of tenants to enforce them. So we support the added resources in this budget for tenant legal services to assist our colleagues at Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid to support renters in court around habitability issues. Also, there's an eviction representation pilot in this budget. As the 2016 eviction report produced by the innovation team identified, evictions do impact renters all throughout the city, but they have a disproportionate effect on north side neighborhoods and among households of color. The vast majority of renters are not represented in housing court, and so the inclusion of resources in this budget to support free legal representation for those folks facing eviction is an important step towards universal right to counsel in housing court. The budget also includes an increase for Homeline's tenant hotline to keep up with the increase in renter households accessing our service, and there's recommendations in the budget that these investments transition from one-time to ongoing budget items. All three of these investments really highlight the need for a local dedicated funding source. That investment could help to support production and preservation of affordable housing, as well as critical legal services for renters. Also, I want to express our support for an item in the proposed regulatory services budget, an increase in 2 housing inspectors for both divisions, smaller buildings and larger buildings. The top issue that renters call us about is repair issues, so this is a key investment. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Candace Montgomery, Derica Nye, and Tabitha Montgomery.
Hi, y'all. My name is Candace Montgomery. I'm here with the Black Visions Collective and the Reclaim the Block Coalition. I proudly live in a house on 3636 Park Avenue South called the Purple Palace. All of its inhabitants are Black, people of color, queer, and trans folks. And I'm here for them. So what I want to say is, or ask first, is who here leads in their community because you think we can do a lot better? Just raise your hand. Does anyone? Who here leads in your community because you think we can do a lot better for our communities? Just raise your hand if you believe that. Okay, cool. Just want to make sure. So what I want to say is it's time, y'all. It's time to set a new course for safety. It's time to be on the right side of history. Be the ancestor someone can be proud of. When we look back and we know we've won, which side will you be on? What I offer is you stand with community. Stop investing in our problems. Stop investing in the legacy of slavery and white supremacy. And fight like hell for all those who believe in you. Fight like hell to allocate real resources towards our people. In just 2 weeks, we will mourn Jamar Clark once again. How many more are you willing for us to mourn? Meanwhile, community members are literally asking for crumbs compared to the city's police budget. We have hundreds of our indigenous family living in tents. Most of my queer and trans friends can't get quality health care, and folks are dying off of unlivable wages. And this planet might not actually be livable for our children. Our city can lead in the work of allocating real resources to actual community solutions. Stop investing in police. We know what we want, and it should be clear at this point, but just in case. 1, fund our communities, not cops. We don't need 8 more officers on our streets. We need community-led solutions. 2, invest in affordable housing. And 3, divest 5% of Minneapolis police budget now. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Derica Nye, Tabitha Montgomery, and then Sonia Dangler. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for your time and for this opportunity to provide public input on the budget. My name is Devika, and I'm a resident of East Phillips. Actually, I live right off of Lake Street in Councilmember Cano's district. And I should start by saying thank you, Councilmember, for how active and engaged you are in the community. I see you out and about a lot, so thank you for that. I wanted to come here today to speak as a member of the immigrant and refugee community here in Minneapolis. As you know, the Phillips neighborhood, where I live, is the most diverse neighborhood in the entire United States. There are over 100 different groups represented, and people will also tell you we are a hotspot for drug sales, sex work, and more. And of course, I'm seriously concerned about these issues and about the material conditions that force people into these industries. But I simply cannot agree that expanding police presence in our communities is the right solution. I myself know many refugees who made it here to Minnesota under the most challenging of circumstances, living in terrible conditions in refugee camps, fleeing violence, losing family and loved ones along the way. As poor people, people of color, and refugees living with the impacts of severe intergenerational trauma, our people are much more likely to get in trouble with the law. We know this. We also know that because of Hennepin County's unethical, inhumane, and completely inexcusable collaboration with ICE, people's immigration status is recorded when they're arrested and sent directly to the ICE database. People can be picked up for the most minor of infractions, and next thing you know, they've lost their legal right to live in the United States. I myself know community members who have been through this. Kids who broke windows and years later were put into deportation proceedings. That is just not okay. And given this context, I'm afraid I simply cannot support any further expansion of the police budget. And before you tell me that that is Sheriff Stanik's fault and not the Minneapolis Police Department's, I would just ask you, have you been down to the Whipple Federal Building alongside moms and dads who are about to kiss their kids goodbye for the last time? Have you sat in the waiting room with those kids and tried to entertain and distract them while their parents are being put into handcuffs? That is the real lived consequence of expanding the police budget.
Thank you, Devika. Tabitha Montgomery is next, followed by Sonia Dangler and Ella Kelperman.
Good morning, council members. My name is Tabitha Montgomery, and I serve as the executive director for the Powderhorn Park Neighborhood Association. In regard to the proposed city budget under review by the council, I, like many who've already spoken, appreciate and value the mayor's stated commitment to begin shifting the trends and availability of affordable housing in the city. However, given the size of the current housing crisis, we are looking to this council's leadership to take proactive steps to first identify pathways identify pathways that align with the city charter, to identify ongoing and sustainable ways to fund the macro housing shortage that rough estimates put at $1 billion when you factor in supportive services. PP&A, along with numerous community partners, see direct decline on the efficacy and effectiveness of diversionary and outreach programs that aim to support livability when the most vulnerable are unable to gain access to housing and or simply have a safe place to go during the day when experiencing homelessness or addiction. With this in mind, the city will have a better chance of achieving its housing goals and overall aims if council leadership identify at least several $1 million that allow businesses and or organizations to invest in creating space that welcomes and says yes to the most vulnerable. This allocation can create a pathway to include and reach the most affected in a meaningful and ongoing way. As a community advocate, we can't conduct effective outreach when we push anyone and everyone in our community into the shadows. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now to the last page of those signed in to comment, so I want to invite people that have come perhaps later to sign in with the city clerk. Oh, there's one more coming up. I invite those who have joined us to continue to sign up to speak. Sonia, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Sonia Dangler, and I live in Ward 10 on Pleasant and Franklin in the Whittier neighborhood. And as an educator in the Minneapolis Public Schools for the past 2 years, I've heard from many young people about how the police make them and their communities feel unsafe. This is not my lived experience. This summer, I worked with a young person who was so traumatized by the police coming into their home that they were unable to do work or be fully present. So this student's experience with MPD made them feel unsafe, and this is not what we need. So I'm here with Reclaim the Block, and I support divesting 5% of the police budget and investing in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Emma Campbellman, Gwen Jenkins, and Colleen Ebbinger.
Hi, my name is Ella. I live in Ward 10 in the Whittier neighborhood at Pleasant and Franklin. I'm here with Reclaim the Block, and I support divesting 5% of the police budget to fund our communities. I'm here as a Minneapolis resident, but also as a white Jewish person who has historically had very neutral to positive interactions with the police. In light of recent acts of domestic terrorism in Pittsburgh, but also around the country, I think it can be easy to fall back on policing as a solution. But the police make many people in our communities, whether they be our Jewish communities or our neighborhoods as a whole, feel, or actually are less safe. Our neighborhoods don't need more police. Instead, they need money directed to more urgent needs, such as affordable housing and addiction and mental health services.
Thank you. We have Gwen Jenkins, Colleen Ebinger, and Peter Van Cognet.
My name is Gwen Jenkins. I live at 2015 Pleasant Avenue South, and I'm here with Reclaim the Block. I support investing in the safety of our communities through funding community-led safety programs and truly affordable and stable housing, not the police. I support divesting 5% from the Minneapolis Police Department's budget and instead investing this money into our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Colleen Ebinger, Peter Van Cognet, and Portia Jackson next. And if you wanted to just go ahead and line up so that we can just keep going. Thank you. Also, just a note about the microphones. You don't have to speak really very close to them, and you don't have to crouch down. They should pick you up just fine. We can hear you just fine. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Colleen Ebinger, and I'm the Vice President of the Family Housing Fund. We are a nonprofit intermediary organization that supports the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, the Metropolitan Council, and Minnesota Housing in their efforts to meet the region's affordable housing needs. We strive to ensure that all families have a home they can afford and a place from which they can prosper and contribute to the larger communities. I'm also a resident of Minneapolis. I hail from Ward 8. And I testify today to support this budget, but in particular to provide my support for the partnership with Minneapolis Public Schools, Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, and Hennepin County to support healthy homes and healthy schools. Stable housing and strong educational outcomes are closely intertwined, as we all know. Statistics from the Minneapolis Public Schools show a 20 percentage point gap in performance for students who are housing unstable. Targeting funding to specific schools where families are most challenged by rising rents, and doing so in conjunction with a deep bench of partners who can add to the financial pot and help reach those families who are most at risk, is a wise investment of public resources. Helping to stabilize low-income families who are precariously housed will save money, it will strengthen our city, and it will buttress our economy over the long term. Further, support for 21 families in each school, many of whom likely will have multiple children attending that school, will have a ripple effect that will create a more stable and engaged learning environment for all students. This budget represents a worthy investment of our city resources, and I urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Van Cognet, Portia Jackson, and then Julie Guggen.
Hi, my name is Peter Van Cognet. I live in the Seward neighborhood at 21st and 26th Avenue. I'm here with Reclaim the Block and MPD 150, and I want to speak with a lot of these other people speaking. I think that the core function of police is to control people who aren't having their basic needs met, and they do that through violence, and that an expansion of the police is expanding people's interactions with them, as means more interactions, more violence, more people in prison, more deportations, things that people have spoken to. A few days ago, somebody came in the middle of the night and stole the catalytic converter off the bottom of my car. And that's an expensive repair, and I'm not going to file a police report or anything like that, because I don't think any good can come for anybody but that bad. I'm not going to get anything back from that. They're not going to, all I would be getting is revenge, maybe somebody having a violent encounter with the police, whether that's interacting with the court system or ending up in prison or just having violence at the hands of the police. And I don't think that expanding officers is likely to prevent that from happening in the first place. You'd need so many officers to prevent people from doing something like that, and that's not a world I'm interested in living in. The only way we can prevent people from doing things like that is by taking care of them. Like somebody said before, crime's not random. People do it largely to meet their basic needs. And so I'm very much in support of what other people have called for, defunding police and actually taking care of people. There's so many community organizations that do amazing work that I know of, many of whom have spoken today, that are hungry for funds and take care of people much better, that would prevent a situation like the one I was in, that would, just take care of people and not inflict more violence. So I'm very much in support of not expanding the police budget and shrinking the police budget and reinvesting in affordable housing and other community organizations that take care of people. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Portia Jackson, Julie Guggen, and Corla Masters next. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Portia Jackson, and I'm a mother of 6, Northside homeowner, and program manager for Homeownership Advising Services at PRG, which is an organization that is part of Make Homes Happen. Minneapolis has one of the worst racial homeownership gaps in the country. White home ownership is at 75%, while Black home ownership language is around 23%, which is a 6-point decrease from a decade ago. The devastating disparity is the result of systemic discrimination brought on by practices and policies carried out by all levels of government since the birth of this country. In Minneapolis, we have the opportunity to enact change for Blacks who have been denied access to generational wealth that our white counterparts have benefited from for many, many years. Narrowing the gap will take intentional, deliberate, and proactive action from many entities, including city government. One effort that can help in a huge way is the funding of $50 million per year for affordable housing. The vacant lots on our city's north side present a tremendous opportunity for the development of housing stock that can assist Blacks in building the wealth that we desperately need to stabilize our families, enrich our communities, and solidify our futures. We need access to resources and education to obtain and maintain sustainable home ownership. Our path to successful homeownership should not be limited to options that are indeed affordable, but require us to pay that affordability forward to future homeowners through the substantial reduction of our access to our earned equity. According to an article entitled, "Is the Housing Market the Answer to the Racial Wealth Gap?" the author states that stable, long-term home ownership does tend to help people build intergenerational assets through housing stability, access to neighborhood opportunity, forced savings, access to home equity, and the ability to pass something on to our children. I have personally benefited from homeownership in many ways, and I've witnessed the positive impact that it has had on my family and neighborhood. I want my brothers and sisters to share that experience by gaining meaningful access to resources and quality housing in communities in Minneapolis where they would not only survive, but thrive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Julie Guggen, Corla Masters, and Jessica Annabelle are next. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. My name is Julie Guggen. I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Home Ownership Center. The Home Ownership Center is part of the Make Homes Happen coalition and supports the significant increases in affordable housing proposed by the mayor for 2019. These increases or these investments would have significant impact in Minneapolis. My organization leads a network of organizations around the city and clearly around the state, and provides tools and resources that consumers need to make objective, informed, empowered decisions to ensure equitable access to homeownership, particularly for those who have traditionally been denied access to the single most important asset building opportunity that all of us enjoy, which is homeownership. We provide financial wellness, homebuyer counseling, homebuyer education, and foreclosure counseling. Thanks in large part to the funding that we received from the City of Minneapolis in 2017, our network of agencies helped over 1,600 households in Minneapolis either achieve homeownership or sustain their existing homeownership. 70% of those households were households of color. We believe that homeownership commits to safe, vibrant communities. We connect our homeownership advisors like Portia to lenders, realtors, and government resources like those that are provided by Minneapolis to ensure sustainable homeownership. Thank you.
Thank you. We next have Corla Masters, then Jessica Annabelle, then Hani Ali. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Corla Masters, and I live in Ward 6 in the Seward neighborhood at East 22nd Street and 26th Avenue South. I'm here with the Reclaim the Black Coalition. I support divesting 5% of the police budget to fund our communities because I have been assaulted and illegally arrested by the police in the course of my job as a pastor. Many of my colleagues in ministry have been assaulted and illegally arrested by police in the course of their work as clergy. So I want to be very clear this morning that my job as a pastor in my community is not made easier or better by putting more police on the streets. More police on the streets means more kids who sit and play games in my office because it's not safe for them to play in the park. More police on the streets means more harassment of the folks in my community who are homeless and more follow-up care that I have to do after that trauma. More police on the street means more times that I have to throw on this collar shirt, sometimes even over my pajamas, and run out my front door to record yet another stop of one of my neighbors for being Black, alive, and on the sidewalk at the same time. And all of this is absolutely my job, and I love my job. But more police on the street makes my job harder, not easier. Anything that makes my community less safe makes me less safe in my work and in my life. I want us together to have the imagination to build a community where public safety looks like safety for all of us, for the whole community. This 5% reallocation of police funding will breathe new life into our city and will jumpstart that imagination. I urge you to accept the demands that Reclaim the Block has put before you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Annabelle, Hani Ali, and then Burhan Mohammed. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Annabelle, and I live at 3542 Humboldt Avenue North. I'm here to support Reclaim the Block as a proud resident of my neighborhood, as a small business leader in our city and an employer, and as a non-binary trans and queer person. I want to echo the voices of the passionate and brilliant community members who have spoken here. Our city has an urgent and immediate need for affordable housing. At the same time, our police department is failing, is harassing us, is terrorizing our communities. I am watching constant police harassment of my neighbors. I want to repeat that. I am watching constant police harassment of the wonderful, kind, working families living next door to me. Some months ago, I was pulled over, erroneously, according to the police, by 6 cars, including 2 on my neighbors' lawns. I have a voicemail on my phone still from the police department after I called to make a complaint, calling to acknowledge that that was a terrifying experience. From the police department. Terrifying experience. We acknowledge that. My friends have suffered eviction and homelessness this year. This is not acceptable. This is not safe. You need to stop this and need to change this. We need to divest a minimum of 5% from the police budget. We need to invest in real safety, housing, and the residents of Minneapolis. Thank you.
Thank you. Hani Ali, if you could help correct your name.
My name is Hani Ali. I live at 3617 33rd Avenue South. And I'm here with Reclaim the Block as well as Black Visions Collective, and I support divesting 5% of the police budget to fund our communities, and particularly investing in more affordable housing. We know that folks in our community who lack access to affordable housing and who have experienced homelessness are disproportionately involved in the criminal justice system. We know that poor folks in our communities are forced to deal with the collateral consequences of criminal records, which affects their access to housing. We know that there are large racial disparities in housing and policing in our city. We also know that crime is a symptom of poverty. So if the goal is safety for everyone and not just some of us, the solution is pretty clear. Invest in our communities and not in cops. In these last few weeks, we've seen many devastating news headlines, from mass shootings to our siblings fleeing violence at the border to the erasure of our trans family. With white nationalism and fascism on the rise all across the world, I urge you all to stand in your values, imagine the impossible, and be the leaders our community needs you to be. And again, I am here in support of Reclaim the Block's demands. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have Burhan Mohammed, Elizabeth Tannen, and then Alex Fox. Burhan, welcome.
Peace and blessings. My name is Burhan. I am a community organizer on the West Bank. I'm here with Reclaim the Block, and I support divesting from the police. I just want to touch on a couple of points and some initiatives that I've seen growing up on the West Bank that included the police. Namely Youth Against Violence, and which I think was a city initiative, and the way that I saw that growing up, and even now more clearly, is the fact that it's positioning our youth as being predisposed to be violent and to be criminals almost, especially when you're exposing armed police officers who come into these spaces fully armed with a bulletproof vest. And in one of the meetings that I remember clearly, we asked some of the cops to come plainclothes, and they plainly refused. And the other thing that I really want to touch on is the fact that this idea that diversifying the police force is somehow will bring about change to our communities. I lived in the Cedar Riverside community for the last 20 years, and I think the last 10 years or almost 12 years, we had 2 Somali officers who I believe are now ranked. And in that time that they were there, they had full access to the community. They knew about what was happening in the community, and we didn't see any real changes. I have friends growing up that were killed under their watch. One of them was plainly executed in a place that they patrolled. And when I asked one of the officers why, if they had any idea or what happened, he said they weren't working. They weren't on the clock. And so, and the thing that I hope comes out of this is for the city council to really support community initiatives that are already there. Safety, being able to build a strong community without having armed police officers as this always being associated with public safety. I don't think public safety should in any way be associated with cops. Public safety can mean a lot of things, and I think in the way that it's been put out and manipulated for people to believe that we need police officers to feel safe and armed men to patrol our communities to feel safe is, I think, unnecessary, and I think the statistics back up the fact that police do not make poor communities feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Tannen, Alex Fox, and then Doug Mitchell.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Elizabeth Tannen. I live at 2204 10th Avenue South in the Phillips neighborhood. I'm here with Reclaim the Block. I'm also a writer and teacher with the Minnesota Prison Rating Workshop, and I'm part of an intentional community that provides transitional housing for queer and trans youth experiencing homelessness called the Minneapolis Catholic Worker. Confusingly, I'm also Jewish. And the other night, I drove to the vigil at Mount Zion because I wanted to be with other Jewish people in mourning with our community. And I didn't get to do that because when I saw that there was a police presence there, I drove away. I drove away because I was so upset by my community's continual investment in the myth that police equals safety. As others here have so powerfully spoken, for the most vulnerable members of our community, people of color, people who are trans, people who are experiencing poverty and homelessness, they clearly do not. When we cling to the illusion of police as safety, we invest in white supremacy. We invest in racist state violence that perpetuates inequality, that perpetuates a mass incarceration system that routinely brutalizes Black and brown and poor people. As a Jewish person, I know our history tells us that investment does not pay off. That investment eventually will cause all of us harm and could even get all of us, even those of us in the community who think our wealth and our whiteness mean police are there to protect us, killed. I want my community and my city to stop investing in a racist, broken system we all know creates more violence than good. Please divest from MPD's budget at least 5% and invest that money in people, not police. Thank you.
Thank you. We're down to the last 3 speakers that have signed in so far. So we have Alex Fox, Doug Mitchell, and then Alice Madden. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Alex Fox. I'm a new resident to the Minneapolis area. I wasn't expecting to speak today, but I wanted to say something candidly. When I was younger, my experience with the police was extremely negative as a low-income child of a single mother. What we experienced was that many times when we called the police for protection, our stories were not believed. I can only imagine what it's like for an immigrant, a person of color, a trans person, or anyone else. The police know the stories of the community. The police know the rumors. They know about your friends. They know your family. And many of them have already made judgments about what you deserve and the kind of help that you should receive when they arrive. The Department of Justice has investigated multiple cities in the United States because they are aware that when crimes are reported, they're not consistently looked into. I want to know what Minneapolis is going to do to make sure that they fix that problem in this city. Because if there's a police department, that's a problem. I think the reason why people don't feel safe when they call the police or when they're there is mainly for this reason. And I just wanted to bring it to the forefront and ask that you take that into consideration when you divest 5% of the budget and turn it towards the communities. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Doug Mitchell, Alice Madden, and then 2 additional sign-ins, Emeline O'Hara.
Chair Palmisano and members of council, I'm Doug Mitchell. I live at 4945 17th Avenue South in the 11th Ward, and I'm representing downtown congregations to end homelessness. We are a coalition now of 17 congregations that have expanded beyond just downtown, but we are Christian and Jewish and Unitarian and Muslim communities, all in Minneapolis, working for affordable housing. We are a part of the Make Homes Happen Coalition. DCEH itself does not develop affordable housing, but many of our congregations have been deeply involved in the creation of housing, and the faith community has been supportive of your efforts to expand affordable housing and housing at 50 and 30% of area median income and those coming out of homelessness. I appreciate, along with others, the additional money in this year's budget. I recognize that the council has resisted dedicating revenue because it reduces flexibility, and that is the point of having dedicated sources, is to reduce flexibility and build a commitment to affordable housing out of dedicated sources that do not compete annually with other necessary items in the budget. So I would invite you to begin to really contemplate how to do that in ways that commit you and us to long-term stability. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Alice Madden, Emeline O'Hara, and Jaehan Shim.
Hi, my name is Alice Madden. I live in the Central neighborhood. Thank you for letting us all speak today. I want to thank you for the increased transparency in some parts of the budget. I know that's Mayor Fry, not here, but also this earlier opportunity to give comment, I think is really important. I'd like to echo all the comments of the folks who spoke before on housing and in support of divesting from the police. I was watching on the live stream, and I think that some of the themes that come forward to me in this budget is not what can be done, but what must be done, and working back from there. And that if you all need community support in order to make those things feel politically palatable, we got you. Like, we're ready for that. And I think the second piece is just how do we sustain this, and one-time funding is not the way to say we're committed to this. And I want to highlight that both for the affordable housing issues and also for the Clean Energy Partnership budget. It's almost all the way restored from the franchise-free increase that was secured last year, but we only saw $989,000 of $2.2 million last year. It's almost all the way restored, but there's a piece of that $900,000 that's still one time, and we have 12 years to figure this out. We had way longer actually, but we didn't do anything about it. And so now we have this time, and I think environmental justice is really the core of what we're facing in a lot of these different arenas, is taking people away from the land through genocide and colonization, and then through economic levers to keep people out of really being able to have what they need. So I'd like to just ask that you make commitments to affordable housing that is in an ongoing way, restoring all of the Clean Energy Partnership budget to be ongoing as opposed to one time, and look into other options that we can move away, move away from policing into things like restorative justice. Restorative justice community action has some relationship with the police already. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Emeline O'Hara is next, and then Jaehan Shim. Please come forward.
I'm Emmeline O'Hara, and I'm just representing my community as a community member. I live on Lowry and Buchanan in Northeast, and I support divesting 5% of the police budget and funding that into community-led safety programs. As someone who's very poor, I grew up poor, I still am poor, I live paycheck to paycheck, and the housing crisis in the city is absurd. 2 years ago, my boss sat me down and tried to walk me through how to file a Section 8 voucher, and we can get into the fact that my boss thought it was more important to help me fill that out than just pay me a livable wage, but here we are. And I just think it's really important that we are funding affordable housing, especially in communities that aren't underfunded and historically are so, which is actually connected to systemic racism. So that's what I'm here to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Last, we have Jaehyun Shim signed in. Welcome.
Thank you, Council. My name is Jaehyun Shim. I formerly have gone by Carrie Lindbergh. Some of you may know me that way. And I am a resident of Ward 9. I live on 29th and 14th. I am here in support of Reclaim the Block's demands, and I grew up in a house where my father was a probation officer, and his whole career was dedicated to moving people from the juvenile system to the adult system, which is pure evidence that this system is not working. If it was, there wouldn't be a need for that kind of system within probation, and it wouldn't have been something that my father could have thrived off of. I also am a transracial adoptee and grew up in a house with all white family members. I didn't get the inherent lessons that people of color generally get from their parents, but I did get to witness the different ways that my white brothers were treated by police officers and the ways that I was treated as a young Asian woman. And we're generally not a threatening population. We're generally not a population that's targeted by police. And I was pulled over every week in high school for looking too young to drive. Because of my experiences and because of what I got to see through my father, I'm very aware that continuing to invest money into the policing system upholds white supremacy in ways that are untenable within our society. And so I'm asking that not only we look at affordable housing as a place to reinvest money, but also social service programs and anything that leads towards keeping people out of the prison systems. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the list of registered speakers today. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the committee? Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Anyone else who would like to speak? With that, we've concluded today's public hearing. Next, I'd like to see if there are any questions from my colleagues. We are using speaker management, or you can just use your flags. Okay, I'd like to reiterate that the City Council will be conducting 2 additional public hearings that are scheduled for November 28th and the 5th. Both of those hearings start at 6:05 p.m. in this chamber. I really want to thank you for being with us today and for sharing your thoughts on how we spend our money and show us where the values are in the community. After the November 28th hearing, this budget committee takes up the recommended budget for markup on Friday, November 30th, at which time council members have the ability to introduce any amendments. We will also use that meeting to receive responses to questions or follow up on questions raised during the budget hearings we've conducted. That markup session on November 30th is scheduled to begin at 10 a.m. in this chamber, and it is also open to the public. All of these hearings and the markup session are televised on the city's cable channel, and they're streamed from our website. The final budget package, which will include the base recommended budget submitted by Mayor Fry, together with any and all amendments brought forward by council members, will be taken up by the full City Council after its final public hearing on Wednesday, December 5th. I want to thank everyone again who came to testify today and invite you to stay engaged in the budget process. We do have a question or comment from Councilmember Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to take a quick moment to say thank you as a Black queer trans person to all of the folks who actually included trans folks in the marginalized groups. It has been an interesting experience to be an elected trans official at this time, and where I feel like I'm in a position of leadership, but also in a position where I'm watching my humanity be erased, and it really means a lot to have folks, cis folks who are really making sure that when we are listing marginalized communities, that trans folks are recognized, because of the fact that so many of us are experiencing intersectional marginalization. And so when you look at trans folks, by the time you get queer, black, trans, go down the list, poor, etc., when the impacts that we see are exponentially grown. And so thank you for seeing us and for including us in your advocacy.
Thank you. Councilmember Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to echo gratitude to everybody who came in to express themselves. This was something that we haven't always done before. It was something we talked about, and I think we really wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity for testimony. And I think what we've seen is thoughtful, respectful, and people really bringing forward a vision that I think gives us an opportunity to reflect and think about if there are adjustments that we want to make. And so we hear you. The purpose of this was to hear you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being part of this discussion as we move forward.
Is there anyone else? I also want to thank our professional staff for the incredible amount of work that it takes to bring forward this kind of a budget to finance our city's operations and deliver municipal services. Seeing no further business to come before the committee today, we stand adjourned. Thank you.